right, welcome everybody to Playing Full Out. I'm your host, Augie Bylot, and this is where we explore success, fulfillment, and the power of purpose. And each week, we visit with interesting people who not only make money, but make a difference. And this is where we spread the good news about enlightened wealth, success that serves others. And this week's special guest is my very, very good and dear friend, Steven VanCauwenbergh. Steve, how you doing?
Yay. It's an honor to be your guest because I had to connive and get my hands through other people to get to you. And it's cool to be a guest for you because I want you to be my guest.
Well, anytime, you know that, my friend.
Yes, you're gracious with your time and your knowledge and your gifts and talents, and you've done a great thing. It impacted my world. I'm an investor in my market. Just bought 2 wheelchairs. Phenomenal. So it's an honor. I'm excited. Let's get it on.
Okay, let's get it on. So I know you're in the middle of a couple of big deals,
Hmm.
and a lot of people don't know your background, but you are a legitimate rags to riches story. I mean,
Yes.
there have been some powerful forces working in your life.
Mm.
Want to share a little
Yes.
bit about that background?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, real fast. I was born in 1973, so I'm 46 years old today.
Happy
Grew up
birthday.
with us, not today, but as of this interview.
Moment.
I had a single mom. My dad left when I was around 2. My brother's 6 years older than me, and he was really frustrated that I was born. And the reason why I was born, that's why my dad left. That's not true, but my poor brother felt that way. He was out of control. My mom had to make the ultimate choice. Can't imagine that she had to put my brother up to a foster home. And we were in New Jersey, and then it was a rough single mom lifestyle. And then one day my mom did the Karate Kid, and they wouldn't let me out of. I was in special. A lot of people don't know this, so this would be cool. I was behind in reading for about 6 years. What happened was had behavioral issues. Back then, they didn't call it ADD. They would medicate me with Ritalin and whatever, and I would just people would make fun of me, and I would lash out. And I was a very large boy, and so eventually I got kicked out of school, elementary school, and then I had to go get bused in a small bus to a smaller school for behavioral problems. I was there for a long time, and then one day I tried to get out of that school, and I was a little smart for my age because I didn't understand. I was like, hey, I want to be mainstream back into regular school. And they're like, 1 more year next year. And then I realized they kept delaying it. And I was young. I was like, 10, 11, 12 at the time. And I realized I was just a number in the school system. In this special school, they got paid per child. And in New Jersey, you had to go to school. You can't do homeschool. It was a law. And so my mom did another unsacrificing thing. We packed everything and we moved to California because the school would not let me mainstream. And this is cool before the internet. And for some miracle reason, they lost my um, jacket, my file that went with me as a behavioral child. So we landed in San Diego, in Imperial Beach, California. And my mom couldn't find a job. I finally got back into school because we didn't have any paperwork because we mystically lost it. And I got straight A's and I had no behavioral problems. Interesting. But I still was about several years behind. But I worked really hard to overcome that learning disability. And then when we fell on hard times, we had no furniture. Our house got kicked. We were living on the border of Tijuana. And my mom had to do the next unbelievable thing. She had to call my dad and say, "Hey, we are on welfare, or we were about to get on welfare. We can't pay the rent. We have no place to go." And so I was around 15-ish. Um, we moved to San Francisco, the Bay Area, and I met my dad. It was like the second time I ever met that dude. Who, we can spend a whole episode on that guy. So he owned a construction company at the time, which is fascinating. And so I got stuck there with him. My brother was in the foster home still. I think he graduated by then, and he went into the military as a Navy man. And I went to high school. Again, my paperwork got lost, but they let me enroll. And eventually my paperwork did get found, and they let me go, and I went to a public school there. And then one day I was in gym class, And this guy rolls up to me. He's like, "You want to go to church?" And I was like, "What? Church?" And sure, there's ladies there. And that's how I came to know Jesus as my Savior, July 29th, 1991. And that day forward, so you got to kind of keep perspective. Single mom, worked 3 jobs. My mom worked, delivered newspapers, worked a regular job, and then worked a restaurant job at night. Sometimes she worked all weekend. So I never saw my mom. I try to tell my own children that my mom never saw me play a sport at all. Never saw a school activity. She was always working. If she wasn't working, she was sleeping. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment my whole life. My only dream at that time was to live in a house. So when I came to know Jesus, my youth minister, she was amazing. And she's like, "Hey, why don't you go to OBU?" I'm like, "What's that?" Oklahoma Baptist University at the time. I didn't even know what Baptist meant. So long story short, my youth minister, she's incredible. She drove me from San Francisco to spring break to visit the campus. And that's how I got to Oklahoma. And then my dream was to own a business and to live in a house. So in 1996, I left OBU, dropped out, couldn't afford it. It was a struggle. School was a struggle. Life was a struggle, but I wanted to be in business. So I was operating a DJ/music production company, and I was doing my own events. I was a hustler. I was doing flyers. That's where the promoter side comes in. I was promoting DJ events and concerts. And then eventually in 1996, I moved to Southside Oklahoma City, and I got to live in a house for the first time in my life. I was around 20-something years old, and I lived in the hood of good. It's so hood. There was drive-bys all the time. It was right by the airport. But the one thing that changed my life, it was $350 a month in 1996 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. So it wasn't economy. It was the location.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had 2 great roommates. And I remember the landlord coming over one time. I don't remember why he came over, but he came over one time and he's like fixing something. And I was just, of course, I was ignorant. I didn't have a dad. So when I saw a man working, I was always intrigued. Anytime I saw a blue collar guy, my dad was blue collar. I don't know if that's in my blood. I would always kind of hang out with a blue collar guy, just talk to them. And I remember him vividly saying, "You can own this house." And I was like, "What? I could own a house?" And that never registered in my mind. I fulfilled the one dream of living in a house, but it's like, "You can own this house right here for $35,000. That's what this guy said to me. And that was a defining moment in my world where this is possible, that I could do this. $35,000 wasn't out of reach. It was impossible in my mind, my living conditions, but it was possible that I could figure it out. So that was that defining moment in my life. So then 3 years clicked by. In 1999, some friends handed me this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Everyone knows it. Whoopie woo, $34 million copies sold. It was these 2 18-year-old kids that were traveling the world that I used to manage their band, and they had no worry. And I didn't understand that they can travel the country doing what they love to do, like your show is about, which is so cool, purpose. They did their purpose, but they didn't have fear, and they lived in one side of the duplex and they rented the other side, and it paid for their expenses. And so at the time I didn't understand. I was just like, first of all, I never heard of a duplex. I was still learning, and I was like, wow, these parents are rich. And they really weren't rich. They were from Iowa. They were very smart. And so I read the book, uh, and I just sold everything I owned and started buying assets. That's all I thought about, is what is an asset? A vending machine. I would preach like, when I first came to know Christ, I was telling everybody about Jesus. Well, I was a Bible beater. And then, like, you're going to go to hell if you don't know Jesus. I'm being serious, but no one would ever listen to me. I was like a psycho, like a Jesus freak. And I was like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like a Jesus freak for freedom, of financial freedom, kind of like you are. You're so passionate about setting people free, about through real estate or even just endeavor of business. I was like that too. And so that's all I thought about was assets. And so I would preach to people and say, listen, that VHS DVD player cost you $200. That's a doodad. You can spend $200 and buy a vending machine, and it can give you money every month. And I was like, and some people would never understood it. Even to this day, even in 2020, no one understands And so I just started doing that principle from 1999 until today. So exactly 20 years roughly. I bought my first house in September of 2009, or yeah, 20 years ago. And that deal was
1999.
phenomenal. And now I am set free for life. I mean it. We can talk about all the success. Maybe it motivates, but I'm not a big fan of telling people that I own a pool. No one knows that. I tried deliberately not to have any photos of my pool or my lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
because I just don't think that works. Driving around a Lamborghini, I don't have one, and I never will because I'm a utilitarian. I like nice things. I like things that do what I need them to do. But I'm not about flash. And I feel when I first got, and if you could talk about this, Augie, I always asked the Lord, I was like, why am I the lucky one? Like, why do this is so easy to me. It's just like, I used to argue with God. I used to get mad at God. I was like, okay, why did I get saved at 17? Why didn't I get saved at 16? And that was my first complaint to the Lord. And then the second thing is like, why do I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and no one else gets it? Like, and so I even ask my wife this all the time. She's like, well, Steven, you take action. I'm like, I maybe is it a belief system? And the thing is like I had nothing. So I had nothing to lose. What's the worst thing that could happen? I'm in the worst position now. Even today, I'm taking this creative building down I would have never taken down if I didn't meet Thomas Morgan or if I didn't meet you
Mm-hmm.
or have the forthright, the for all to do it. But I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, I lose X amount of money? Okay, it's not like I can't make it again. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've just been buying assets ever since then. And it's
Well, let's
pretty
talk about that a
remarkable.
little bit, Stephen.
Yeah.
What does the word success conjure up in your mind?
Great
We all have
question.
a different, definition of it, and it's one of those amorphous kinds of subjects. Success to one person can be completely different than success to another person. But
Yeah, I think that,
Steven
I,
VanCauwenbergh.
well, I was listening to, I don't know if you know Chris Widener from Dallas. He was mentored under Jim Rohn. And he talks about this just recently. I was listening to a CD, and he said that success is usually a financial respondent to that. Like the first thing, success is $1 million to some people. And I've always thought of that question all the time. And so it's a great question. And success, I think, for me is freedom. But then the word freedom is ultimately overrated in society today because people don't know what true freedom is. So success to me is the ability, to be able to do what you want to do, give back, and meet all my needs. So when I first got successful was when I was first making $1,500 a month and I was debt free. And that was, maybe 10 years ago. That it was like the first time I was financially debt free, and I had enough cash coming in. At that time I was single. This is about 15 years ago, 16 years ago, that I was single, that I could live off of $1,600 a month and I never had to work again. Now, success to someone else could be a fancy car. I don't see success that way. I see success, that I can choose to do what I want to do. For example, if I want, like today, I had to make a choice. I'm trying to close this deal today, but I made a real goal of running. So I was actually, I wanted to get to the office by 8 o'clock today, but I didn't get to the office until 9:30 today. I think that's success. I think not success is that I have to do something that I don't want to do. I think success is doing something that you want to do, whatever that may be. And for everyone, that's different. For you, it's different than it is for me. Is it a dollar number? No, I just think that the actual dollar number is more money coming in than I need to live on. And so even in my meeting this morning with my staff, we had a Christmas dinner yesterday, and I told my staff, because some people didn't show up. And I was like, why didn't some people show up? Some people don't want to hang out with their work people. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that's very sad. I go, I don't care what people think, but it's a free meal. And I get it's a Sunday, but some people deliberately, some staff members did not come because they don't want to be hanging out with staff members. And I thought to myself, and I was like, I was like a little disappointed. And she's, they're just my staff is trying to tell me, some people are just not like that or just not like you. And I was like, I get it. I said, though, I go, the reality is this is the first time in my life that I have excess. I said, I really thought about it. I was like, this $500 Christmas dinner, that's pure bottom. Well, of course I wrote it off on my taxes, but only, so 50%. So $250 was really $250 that came out of my
Hmm.
child's mouth. But I go, that's what freedom is that I was willing to bless these key people to have dinner with them. I think that's success. I think that you have you have excess, you have um, excessive, more money than you need. I think that's freedom. Some people think that they need more. When I look at deals today, the biggest, quite like this building I'm taking down right now, do I really need another headache? Do I really need another business? What what am I trying to do? Is this going to keep me from getting home any earlier? Or does this make me look savvy landlord even cooler because I can say now I have $10 million in assets, which $10 million in assets really doesn't mean a darn thing if you don't have cash flow. And I think a lot of people get confused with $10 million in assets. Oh, Van Cauwenbergh is rich. Okay, buddy. You know, and I do grow $70,000 a month. Okay, buddy. Okay. It
Well, that
sounds
gross
sexy, man.
$70,000 a month is great, unless, of course, your expenses a month are 80,000. Then you kind of have a problem. So
Exactly. It's just, and I think that the Lord, he can only handle, it blows my mind that that much money flows through my hands. Like when I see my tax return and it's not, I'm profiting that. I mean, just people steal from me all the time. I mean, I see laborers writing wrong tickets. I can argue with people. I see families that I'm taking care of. And at the end of the day, what do I net? Okay. Oh, I $10,000. Okay. My mortgages are about 35,000, maybe more. My tax burden this year for my property taxes is over $80,000.
mhm.
$80,000. That's like $9,000 a month, people. so so when you start chipping away 70 G's, but that doesn't prevent me from not having a lawsuit. That doesn't prevent me from, but I realize that God has put me in a position that I can handle it. I teach my children, I'm not going to give you $100 if you can't handle $10. And if you
Mhm.
can't handle $100, you can't handle 1,000. And so God has allowed me with my ability. And I laugh and I think, wow, why am I the lucky one? What makes me so special? I'm not special. I just think that I take it very serious. This is not a hobby. This is a real deal. I'm representing what God has allowed me to have. I'm being a steward of my stuff.
And
And
that's
so,
one thing that has always impressed me about you from the time we met. And you are infinitely more successful today than when we first met. You were on your path, and you're still on your path.
mm,
But that's one of the things that struck me, and is the fact that you're a good steward, not just over money or over assets or relationships, but you're a good steward over life. One of the things that has impressed me, is the fact that you've taken time to publish a number of books. Now, I know those books don't make you tons of money. I mean, my books don't make me tons of money, but the good thing is whatever checks come in go right back out to charity. So, and kind of the way you describe things, your definition of success or what it conjures up in your mind, I've kind of boiled it down, and maybe the words are a little different, but I think that the sentiment is the same. Success is really having the freedom to live your purpose or your mission, whatever
mm.
it is that you're called to do. And you help a lot of people. You run events, you do a lot of different things, you do a lot of things in your community. And, you speak about your faith quite a bit, and I think that's a good thing. And how has that faith helped lead you either on your path toward success, or better yet, maybe, how has it supported you when things weren't going well, when you've had challenges to meet?
Well, I mean, I came from a desperate position of poverty, of not having anything. And so when I came to know Christ, that was everything. So I don't, I go up and down in depression like anyone else, I would think. The thing I think when you're a high achiever, like successful businessmen, is like you reach your goal and then you're depressed again. And that I think having a faith keeps it even kill, where I'm humbled every time I do my quiet time. Every time I turn on the Bible app, I'm humbled. Now, yeah, is there days that go by and forget about the Bible app? Absolutely. And I can tell that when my life gets out of whack is because I'm not faithful in my time with him. God, it's just simple. Like faith and religion is a simple thing. It's just having a relationship. It's just like you and I. It's like, I love you. I wish I was in Florida. Like I was talking to Thomas this morning, and he's like, yeah, for Christmas they're going to be in Tampa. I'm like, I forgot that you're from Orlando. The thing is, it's like, it's a relationship. We have to foster that to develop. I don't spend time with the Lord so he can bless me. like, and I think it's harder being a Christian. And what is Christianity today anyway? People have so many different perceptions of it because it's hypocritical. I think the faith has just grounded me that nothing would have ever happened if it wasn't for him. And I know for a fact that when I was homeless in college and I had no money, and money would be in my mailbox. Like, just like, I would be walking, I weighed 190 pounds. I'd be walking on campus and I would have not eaten, and people thought I was doing drugs, and I just didn't have any money. My mom, lived in California, and I didn't know anyone, and I didn't have a job, and I never missed a meal. And someone would be walking, okay, hey, why don't you come over to my house and have dinner? And I knew that was the Lord. See, God just it's just faith. I think that's the most important thing. I think, why are we doing this in general? Like, I tried, this is the most I've ever talked about faith publicly, because I'm trying to live it out. I don't want to talk about it
Hmm.
because there's just a bunch of charlatans. Now, I believe that God has given me this platform. Every time I want to, close down Savvy, this is not making money. You talked about books. I'm like, I would have never written 5 books. It's just a waste of time. No one reads. And, when
I would disagree.
I,
You know one. There's a
I
lot of
don't
people
know.
I learn every day, and a lot of them read books.
I don't know if they're, I don't know. But
You know,
like, I'm,
there's 7 billion people on the planet. Somebody reads books, I
yeah,
promise you.
okay. All right. All right. I'll give it to you. You
Just
have a
because
little bit more
it's a
wisdom
New
than
York
me.
Times bestseller does not mean it didn't serve a purpose.
But, to my faith, I think the quick answer would be, it's just to ground me for purpose in life. I would never, I just know for a fact that God has done miracles in my world. It's just simple to me. There's a lot of detailed people that have to have, proof that the Bible's real, or, dude, Jesus is real. There's no other way around it. So in my world, it's just simple faith for me. Has it affect me? Yeah, I would. I think all glory goes to him. Am I human? Yes. Do I curse? Yes. Do I have to apologize? Quite often. Do I have to repent? More times than I would like to admit, on a daily, hourly basis. Does it make me any better Christian than anyone else? No. But if you want to know Christ, I would love to tell you. But I'm not going to force it on them. I'm going to live it out.
Hmm. Well, I mean,
So that's.
modeling
I
is
don't
the
know if
best
that's
way to
your
teach
answer.
anybody anything.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know if that's your answer. I don't know. We turned this into the Christian show. Like,
Well, that's okay. It's one of my favorite subjects anyway, faith.
all right.
And
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean,
it is part of our core values. So
okay.
that's fine. Because I mean, I live by 2 rules: love God, love people. That's it.
Mm,
You do
all
that,
right.
you fulfill a lot of requirements. And but anyway, well, shifting back kind of into the business world, what kind of mistakes have you made along the way, and what have you learned from them?
Well, first of all, everyone should read "Failing Forward" by John C. Maxwell, because you're
Hmm.
going to fail. I think I love it. Tony Robbins. He's like, the more you fail, the more you succeed. I think that you have to fail. You have to take risks.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of things I think I did fast was, I didn't put the right people on the bus in the right positions. I
Hmm.
didn't. I was writing a podcast the other day about, just not hiring. Do whatever you don't like to do. And I'll quote this person later. Actually, it's Derek Shivers, and it's a book called All What You Want to Do. It's a great entrepreneur book, and I can reference it later. But if there's something that you hate to do, someone out there loves to do it. So outsource it.
Hmm.
Something that you hate to do, but we tend to be cheap, and so we cut our grass, and we're robbing a blessing from someone else. I think that's one of my big mistakes. Um, I should have done that. What else? what should have been created did creative finance way earlier. I did it when I first started in 1999. All my first 10 or 11 deals were creative. Then I got fat with or lazy with banks. They made it super simple. And then now I'm like 20 years later, I'm like, why did I not be Augie Barlight and not do this all creatively? I mean, just before we got on the phone here, I, 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 I was working on a creative deal, like with a realtor, like, hey, how can we get more subject twos done? And how do we incentivize the listing realtor? And then I was walking them through the process. I'm trying to think of what are the mistakes. Um, I think this is related to business, but I think health is one of the biggest mistake that I've ever made. Being ignorant about food and that process, using cheap foods. Saying low self-esteem is a big mistake. Uh, Limiting beliefs is another mistake, and not investing into personal development a lot more heavier. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm down. I would read about Zig Ziglar, and he would, read several hours a day. Warren Buffett reads 7 to 8 hours a day. Brian Tracy reads 2 to 4 hours a day. And I'm like, how do you do that? How do you make money? How do you get deals done if you're reading all the time? I'm thinking they're like cozied up in their, house. And I realized at 46, I mean, man, I need to spend a lot more time on personal development. I need to spend at least a minimum of an hour reading some book and growing personally. I wish I would have had this vigor ferociously, 20 years ago. I mean, I just read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I just put it to action. And I think that's success, is putting it to action. But
Hmm.
man, I wonder what it would have been like if I would have really spent a lot more time learning and reading, not just buying classes like your course and never opening it, and really actually going through the course. That's a mistake.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that point up, but you know, people don't think about the impact of 1 hour. Because yeah, it's an hour. It's like landlords. Oh, it's only $200 a month cash flow. Why do I need this house? But 1 hour a day over 20 years, how many hours is that?
Well,
Okay,
it's compounded. I mean, I know now.
7,000 hours. They say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master of anything. Well, at an hour a day, you're almost there.
Well, I know for sure that the more you know, the more you make.
Hmm.
It's simple. The reason why it's so funny, you would love this because this is hysterical. And when people hear this, they're gonna. I'm telling you, people. I am considered an expert in my market on subject twos. No one wants to do them. I'm like, like seriously, I just. I laugh because I am not an expert. I literally have just done a few of them, maybe 6 or 7 of them, and I have had good mentors. But that's the
For
that's
those
the
those folks that don't know what a subject to transaction is, it's a transaction where you buy a property and take over the payments on an existing mortgage.
and
There's
it's
a
not
whole
easy.
system and process that goes behind it, but that's what Steve was referencing. In case you're not familiar with that term.
Yeah, and it's not an easy process. It's just like, you know, I just was working with another investor just a little while ago, and it blew my mind how do you put a Dunkin' Donuts in? You know, how does a strip center go down? You get a house, you get the land under contract, and then you have 6 months. I was like, you got 6 months to lease it up? Yep. I was like, wow, that's an advantage. So you tied up $1 million property with $5,000 and you have 6 months, and then you got to put in 20%. So it's a $2 million deal. So you got to come up with 400,000 that you can borrow privately, right? Yep, you could borrow 400,000 privately. So let me get this straight. You can develop a Dunkin' Donuts strip center with another dental space that brings in like $200,000 a year in revenue. In It blew my mind. I mean, that's education. I mean, I think that we need to spend or teach children or investors, and that's why I love what you're doing with Creative Wealth USA down there. And you have this authentic class of teaching people at all levels about how to invest. No one's willing to do that, and it all boils down to knowing. My friend of mine that was walking me through this deal, he was lucky enough that some other developer that has developed Chick-fil-A's all over the country, and these huge properties all over, like, I mean, just huge properties. And they turnkey them. They find the land, they build it, then they sell it to the franchise, and then they
Mm-hmm.
walk away and they profit from it. I mean, to me, it sounds like a lot of work. Like, I want to do it, you know, I'd be in, but that was my friend's dream, and he's actually working on his dream to be a developer. Now, I don't want to do that, but I thought the numbers were fascinating. Looking at the financial documents, looking at the pro forma, I'm like, hey, what's this fee? How's this going to happen? Where's this
Mm-hmm.
going to go? How long will this close? What will happen if you can't lease it out? You know, you have to have a Dunkin' Donuts? Can you use anyone? Why can't you make it 6 units? Why not 4 units? You know, it's just fascinating. It's just another dynamic of real estate, but this team is an expert of it. And
Mm-hmm.
how are they becoming an expert of it? Because of education and learning. And I think that's, to answer your question, is the mistake is that we're not taking it serious enough of our education, that we just buy classes and want to be millionaires, but we don't want to put the work in. We don't
Mm-hmm.
want to hire coaches, and you have to do that stuff. You got to put the work in. You got to buy the courses. You got to hire the mentors, and you got to put it into action. And I think that's the biggest mistake that I've done, that I'm just now finally getting to do that properly in that order.
Well, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of my students, he's been with us, I guess, 4 or 5 years, and he's gone from single family, kind of like yourself, to apartment buildings, and they just took down a 129 unit complex.
Wow.
Now that's pretty significant. It was under 10 million, but still it needed a significant capital raise. And because of learning how to use private money, how to have private money conversations, they were able to raise 2 million in cash and bank finance the balance. And it'll probably take 5 to 7 years before there's a cash out or a refinance type event. And, you know, based on the numbers, unless there's some catastrophic event in the economy, which is unlikely because of where this is located, it's the right kind of a property. The likelihood is everybody will end up doubling their investment. And that's a passive investment. And the same thing with, you know, shopping center development. Not everyone works, but when you learn how to do the right due diligence and how to structure the deals and take the effective actions, that's where the rewards come from.
It's awesome.
You know, much like you started out the same exact way, but when you start to learn, it whets your appetite. And those that continue to learn continue to grow. Now,
You know, it's interesting that you said that. I think would be a really good course is private money conversations. I think that's what we need to do. People don't take the time to learn. Like, I was talking to a student earlier, you know, they got all this knowledge. They know everything about subject two, but they don't know how to talk to somebody about a subject two. Like,
right.
You may know the inner workings, or you may know the structure of how it works and the documents. Great. But if you can't sell it to them by the pitfalls, then it was all mute. It was a waste of education. I think there needs to be a balance. You know, I love the cone of learning. You ever see, you know, it's actually participating, stimulation, actually doing it, role playing. I think those are the most important things that I think that we need to, and I know that's been your heart and mission, is like we need to take back the school system and really just have hands-on training. This is like an apprenticeship. Like, this is, you know, you can't go to tattoo school. You got to sit next to a tattoo artist and do it. They do that with the medical field. Why they don't do that with investors? They just give you a couple of classes and then go out and manage someone else's money without having any risk involved in their own time. You know,
Yeah,
or
it's
their own.
unfortunate that our educational system does not teach our kids that life is not a dress rehearsal.
Yes, Jim Rohn or somebody. No, I don't know who said that, but I just heard that just recently. There's no not warm up. This is not a warm up game.
Right.
There is no
You're in the
scrimmage.
major league.
There is no scrimmage here. This is it. This is the real deal.
You're playing in the major leagues every day of your life. Do you have a role model?
I have like physically, like I have several role models. I mean, my ultimate role model is Jim Rohn, and he's
Hmm.
obviously passed away. He is my ultimate role model. I can just hear his voice, and I read it. The obvious one, obviously, is Jesus. But like in the flesh,
Hmm.
I admire certain people's commitment to runners. Like there's this book, like David Coggins is a book called "You Can't Hurt Me." I think that's a good role
Hmm.
model of physique. Rich Roll is an ultra marathon. It's a phenomenal book you need to listen to, Augie. It's called Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. It's a
Hmm.
phenomenal book. That would be a role model to me. Just his ability of overcoming addiction and sobriety to being 40 something years old and taking his life back in the health aspect. I think that's a good role. My wife is a role model for me. The way she serves our family and our children, I get inspired on her patience. And each three of them, my children, two of them, you can kind of bark at them. But my third one, you can't. You got to get on your knee and talk to her in a different tone. You can't say, "Katie, come over here." That would
Hmm.
crush her. And my wife has dialed in on that, her personality type. I have friends and mentors that are inspire me. But I would say Andrew Carnegie would be my ultimate role model if I had
And
to
why
think
is
of.
that? Why
Um,
Clark
I
Carney?
I just love his story. I didn't like his upbringing. His If you study back then, in the tycoon age, that his thing is that he made all of his wealth, worked really hard and very lonely for the first half of his life, and then the second part of his life, he gave it all away. I follow that mantra. Another role model is the pastor of our church, Greg Rochelle, just that they give it all away. They give out the Bible app. They're the ones that created the Bible app.
Hmm.
I want to be able to give away. I love your goal your goal of $1 billion. Like you told me that like 10 years ago, it seems like 6 years ago. I'm like, this dude's psycho. I'm like, he's an old dude. Like, you did for, all my friends, Thomas raves about you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I got to meet this guy. And I'm like, I met him. He's okay. He's a good teacher. Yeah, he's a good guy. And they're like, I want to give away $1 billion. And of course, my mind was so small and did not articulate that.
Hmm.
Like $1 billion. And then, as God has broken me and God gave me a challenge to give away $100,000 last year. And I was like, okay. And I gave away 100,000. And then this year was like 30,000. And I didn't, I still got 30 days, but I need that 30 G somewhere. And then God wants me to give away $1 million. And so, I've talked to some people about this. And is that giving away $100,000 for 10 years? Is that creating a business that throws off $1 million?
Hmm.
But I love the way you do yours. It's like, I want to get as many investors, and you had it all down to a mathematical equation, which I love
Hmm.
math. And it just made sense. It just healed my soul that, man, if you go down in history, Augie, and I'm one of them, we're doing this marathon to support you. How gnarly is
Yeah,
that?
that
Like,
that's fabulous. I mean, our wheelchair initiative.
yeah,
Talk about that a little bit, because I know you and I have a call scheduled, to actually start working on some of the finer points and the details.
yeah, I
But
could tell you about it.
yeah, just for
Yeah,
anybody who's listening,
yeah,
it's going to be a virtual marathon,
yeah. So, well, yeah. So
right?
yeah,
Is that correct?
5K.
Or
Yeah.
half? Or what is it? A
So,
10K, 20K, 30K?
no, it's a 5K and a half. But let me tell you how it happened. So we're having
Okay.
dinner, and I said this on my podcast just recently, but I need to tell you the version. So I was you sat next we sat next to each other at dinner, and you were showing me pictures of your trip, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I was like, man, the Lord spoke to me right then, and He's like, you need to help this guy, and I was like, I can't. I'm like, okay. I need to help him. I'm like, how? make a flyer for him and put him in all your books. I was like, okay, I could do that. Nobody buys books, so I could handle that deal. No, he's like, you need to design a flyer for him and spread the message and put it all in your stuff. Okay, so like all the stuff that I sell, all my classes, we're doing Investor Weekend nationwide. Okay, I get it. So Share the Love is going to be, our sponsor. Okay, got it. All right, Jesus. So then I just like disappear. And then somebody, I'm like, I'm really trying to define to help you. I'm like, and you were out of town and it was right after Ohio. I was like, I was going to call you. And then I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to get this done. And I'm like, and then some random dude at the real estate club meeting comes up to me and says this. Now, I didn't realize this, but a lot of people follow me, which I'm honored that people follow me because like I hope I'm not leading people in the wrong. Like I'm human, so I'm going to fail you people. So get ready. But so a lot of people follow me on this running, which I'm not a runner. I became one, but this dude walked up to me, and this is a guy that I've known for a long time. He's actually read all my books. So I follow him. He follows me. And he's like, Steven, man, I've been following you for a long time. I'm like, yeah, thanks, buddy. And he's like, your real estate's great. I'm like, okay, great. Well, like, I don't need you to judge me, but thank you. And he's like, but the great thing that I have noticed about you is your running, and it's really inspired me. And I was like, oh, okay. So, of course, that's why I keep posting about running. Like a lot of people don't know, I run a lot and no one knows because I'm like, this is like, why am I telling the world about my running? Because it just makes me look conceited. Well, then the Lord spoke to me. He's like, you need to do this marathon. And then I'm reading this book that about creating community. This is you. So I'm reading this book about business and, I read a book a week and I was like, man, I need to create a community. And how could I create this community? And so I need to do a marathon. And I was like, okay. So then I Googled up marathons and I found virtual marathons. And I was like, I'm going to do a virtual marathon. Of course, I have no idea. I've dig deep into this project. Augie is bearing me. I'm like, this is another thing I need to do. So then I was like, oh, savvymarathon.com is available. Great. I had no idea what I'm doing. And so this is how it's going to go down. We're going to charge $100, I think. That you get the bib, you get a medal, you get a t-shirt, and then whatever. So hopefully it's about $50 a person to run a marathon. And the other $50 a person that we're going to give to buy wheelchairs. So every 3 people, we're going to buy a wheelchair, hopefully.
Wow.
And so the cool thing about it, is that we're going to do it on May 3rd, 2020. Now locally, we're just going to just show up at the lake because the lake is about 9 miles around the lake, 11 miles around the lake. So, but you could start this. I haven't figured it out, but I'm still researching, but we're going to start the marathon sometime in February and end or some 2 months or 3 months before. And then we're going to do a big push. And then, we're going to donate money and get healthy. And I realized that a half a marathon is pretty intense for people. So my wife was like, we probably need to do a 5K because my kids can't run a marathon. So my kids are going to raise money for this thing for you. And we're going to have a raising fund. And I haven't gotten to the details, but that's basically it. So on May 3rd, every year, we're going to do a marathon from here on in. It's going to be a half marathon and a 5K. We're going to meet at 7:00 at the lake for sure. I'm going to be there with a banner on. It says meet here. We're going to throw up some water stations and we're just going to have fun. And I'm figuring out the registration and have it automatically go to you. And that's it. And so you're the birth of the Savvy. And so the Savvy Marathon. And then next year, we're going to probably do another cause, which is probably Whiz Kids, which is I'm all about literacy because I got out of I was 6 years behind in reading. So I became wealthy because of reading. So I want to contribute this. So every year we're going to pick a charity or cause or something that can benefit people running. And I hope that it would catch on. 5 people may show up or 100 people. I don't know. It's very nerve wracking. Just the medals alone are about $5 to $10, but it's exciting. I know you have an anniversary.
There's a good chance we get the word out early enough. We can get people all over the country participating.
Yeah. I mean, if so many people follow me,
pick their own spots. They can lead in their own city.
Yeah. And so many, I mean, And I don't know how to track it. I mean, we're just gonna wing this deal. Like, hey, go to this website, and
Mm-hmm.
if you want us to handle it, send us the $100.
Mm-hmm.
You want to handle it on your own, you do the 50 there and 50. I think, I don't know. We're just trying to figure it out. We don't know the total cost. Like the shirt's $10 and the metal's
Mm-hmm.
$10, and then there's some fees in there and mailings, but it's just DIY. Integrity. Run the race, earn a medal.
Yep.
We may just ship it all at once. You have to prove that you ran it, like with a
Mm-hmm.
Facebook photo. But I'm excited. Maybe we'll run it. Well, maybe this will be a charity thing that we run every year. Maybe we'll run it in next year. We'll run it in Florida, and it may take off. I don't
Well, we
know.
may get some people here in Florida to push it so it's running simultaneously in
Yeah,
different
I
cities.
mean, it's again, it's just always. No, I wouldn't say cliche. It's just the easy. It's the Lord's thing. It is His deal. I mean, the more I
Yep.
dig into it, it's a lot of work to organize it. Like just figuring out these medals is already a
Mm-hmm.
big ordeal in my mind. But we're gonna do it. It's going down. I hope that we raise. I need to set a goal of, I don't know, 30 wheelchairs would be, they're $150 a piece. Is that right?
Yep.
So we would need 100 people. So our goal, and how much is, no, what's a container? How many is a,
Container load is 42,000, and that's 280 wheelchairs.
okay, I can't do that.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe you can't do it by yourself, but I think if I reach out to the runners that I know, you never know. We may
Okay,
get
well,
some
we'll shoot for the
additional
moon.
logistical support.
All right. So I know from Oklahoma City, I'm going to try to get 100 people, and that would be 30 something wheelchairs minimum.
Right. So if we could get 10 cities to do that, there's
Yeah.
a container load.
Nah, yeah. So then I would have to hire a full time person, but I'm down. I mean, I got a guy working here, Jeremy. He's got nothing going on over here.
Well, I'll talk to my people
Yeah, it's
that
awesome.
share the
Well, we
love
got the logo
and see
done.
what kind of additional support they might be able to drum up to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
So,
anyway,
it
that's,
doesn't mean you have to do this whole thing, by yourself with, scotch tape and
well, as soon
rubber
as
band.
we just fired up like a temporary website, but probably in another, probably January, February, we will, probably January, we're going to ask for volunteers. So
Mhm.
that's going to happen. Someone's going to step up. If that's you out there, you feel like you're compelled to get involved, or you have
Yeah, if
some
anybody's
experience.
watching that wants to get involved,
Yeah, absolutely.
let us know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just you can find us anywhere. Forward their number on to me. I'll call them. If you're in
Yep, you
Oklahoma
can
City,
always
even
reach me at
better.
Augie, AUGIE, at creatingwealthusa.com.
It's awesome.
And let us know that, you want to kind of be the ambassador in your city. You've got a bunch of runners who know a bunch of runners. And before you know it, this thing could really,
Yeah.
really explode.
I mean, the impact that it makes. I love what you said to me the other day. You were like, man, one wheelchair affects 8 people. I mean,
Yeah.
elaborate on that.
Well, I was surprised. I always thought the recipient got all the benefit, but
Yes.
it turns out that family members, siblings, caretakers, neighbors, the whole community benefits, because when a disabled person without mobility has no chair, they have to be carried everywhere. And, we were in Guatemala, and I met a guy whose brother carried him literally on his back, and because he was a double amputee, they went back to back with their arms interlocked. And the older brother carried the younger brother. The younger brother was 65 years old. I met a mother in Nicaragua this past August who carries her 17-year-old son, who's almost a grown man. He's got a neurological disorder, so he cannot walk. His mom, who's probably, I don't know, 45, maybe 50, she's carrying this kid who's the size of a man because he outgrew his wheelchair when he was 9 years old. And there's just no way for these people to replace a chair or even to obtain one if they don't have one and need it. So for many of the people we work with, it's their first wheelchair. And so, if the disabled family member has no way to be mobile, that means all the care that they require, everything that's needed comes from the family and the neighbors. And that means the other kids in the family get less time. Now, with 3 kids in your household, how much time each one requires. But imagine, heaven forbid, one was disabled. and had to be carried everywhere. They need that much more, hands-on attention, and that simply requires less time because there's only 24 hours in a day. So 8 people kind of benefit, and I'm working on my 2020 goals, but I'm working on them for the decade. I'm declaring this upcoming decade that starts in 2020 as the decade of vision.
Wow.
And we all need to have a vision for our lives. And by the end of the decade, I want to deliver 40 container loads of wheelchairs.
That's awesome.
And,
what's that number?
Oh, it's a lot. It's 8,000, almost, 40 times 300 would be like 24,000 chairs, something like that. I mean,
Wow.
it's a massive number. But, the idea is I don't do this by myself. I invite people to help. It's funny, we were on a cruise in France about 4 or 5 months ago, met a couple from Colorado, and Thanksgiving Day, I opened up my email and they donated a wheelchair. And just to see that, I get this automated wheelchair, donation notice, it just made Thanksgiving all that much more special. And so, we live and we serve. I mean, that's the key. And so it's powerful. And if we can deliver, 8,000, I think the number was like 8,000 wheelchairs. If we can deliver 8,000 wheelchairs, we can affect 80,000 people.
It's awesome.
So that would make it a pretty good decade. And that should also get us halfway or further towards our $1 billion challenge too. I want to help people learn how to become financially independent, successful, whatever you want to define it, so that you can donate $100 a week to the charity of your choice, not mine, but yours, and make a difference in your family, in your community. Because once you start to realize that giving doesn't take away from anything you have, you start to learn that you're in a completely different space. You go from scarcity to abundance.
Yes.
And that's a big part of what this podcast is about. It's really about the fact that every single one of us can make a difference. Now, you were virtually homeless and you gave away $100,000 for charitable purposes. I never expected in my lifetime to be doing pretty much everything I'm doing today.
Oh, yeah.
And to ever get to a point in life where every day is such a huge blessing.
Yeah,
and then as I bless others, I am blessed so much more than the blessing I try to give.
Well, let's dial back one step there. You said something that's very powerful. I think people need to know that scarcity breeds fear, and you're never going to be wherever you need to be if you're full of fear. So I would squash that as soon as possible. There is an abundance, and I know that's becoming a cliche word or an overused word, but there really is an abundance. There is opportunity everywhere. We're just not trained to see it because we're driven by fear. Take the fear element out, and your eyes will be lifted off, and you can do anything. Anything is possible. And I know that's another word that's easy, but I'm here to tell you, I wouldn't be here to when I set that goal, and it's a long, detailed story on the $100,000. I thought it was impossible. It was impossible in my mind. I never told anybody that I mentioned it a couple of times, but God was faithful. It came through. He just the power. I guess the point is the power of believing that you can do it. I can't do it. I'd said, okay, God, if this is your goal, then you need to make it happen. And he made it happen. And on November 31st, I wrote the final $10,000 check. And then I got really upset with the government because you can't donate more than 60% of what you make. So I thought that was really interesting. I had to pay tax.
Well, you can. Then it goes beyond a tithe, and it's an offering.
Well, I tithe on top of that.
I know, I get it.
But the point was, I mean, it's very frustrating because I'm set up like an S corp. But the thing is, you have to be like a corporation. You can give out more.
Yeah.
So just FYI, but paying tax on money that I've donated. But it was a lesson well learned. Obviously, I'm still alive. Obviously, I'm still rolling and trucking, and opportunities are everywhere, just like the opportunities that I have going on right now. And I think that you, as listeners, I know you may be broke or depressed or frustrated, fat, skinny, missing a meal. There's abundance. There's someone I learned in Ohio, and I know you learned this, Augie, but there's this thing called human value or human capital. And you can be successful for someone else. You could volunteer for Augie. I know when Vincent started working for you, and he's a wonderful man, just the opportunities that Vincent sees, that you want him to be wealthy, you want him to buy houses, you want him to succeed. What an opportunity that he came to serve. And now he bought his first house just recently, a couple years ago, right? I
Hmm.
mean, he would have never done all that stuff. And not to put it, he said possible. But he brought human value. And so when you start thinking, what value can you bring? I love watching the Ohio group, and she's like, can anyone do systems? And someone stood up, and I do systems. Someone can do this, and remember, whatever you hate to do, someone loves to do.
Hmm.
So let someone love to do something that you hate to do, and you can create value. I'm a hustler, okay? Or in your case, you're creative. Hey, Augie, how can we make this deal happen? And so if I have to give you an equity position in the deal, that's fine. I would have never, and I've done many subject twos with attorneys
Hmm.
because I knew they were going to get complicated. I knew they would have backlashes. I knew we were stepping in uncharted grounds. I knew there would be fees. I knew there'd be costs, but I was willing to lose some equity so I could have a reassurance. Someone was going to hold my hand with me. We were going to fight the battle together. Not everything has to be on your own. Not everything has to be all yours. That's where you destroy the the abundance mentality. There's enough to go around. That deal that I'm talking about, there was a $700,000 subject to I took down. I mean, it's phenomenal. And I'm so glad that I did a partner on it, because there were some things that were way over my head. And when they accelerated the clause because they said we defaulted, but we didn't default, and we're back and forth fighting over $200,000 worth of equity, I would have given up, but I didn't. I came out with a paycheck. So
Hmm.
that's because of the abundance mentality. You can't do it all on your own in this place. It's impossible. You got to have mentors. You got to go to class. You got to show up, and it's not easy, but you got to do it. And I'm telling you, I'm going to go to my grave wondering, why isn't anyone else? Why isn't there more Augies? Why isn't there more Savvies? Where are they? And why are they hiding out? Not, I mean, I ask the same questions that you are thinking. Listeners, ask the
Hmm.
questions, seek the mentors. All right. I know we're beating this up. What other questions we have? Come on, man.
Well,
We're in
no,
an hour
actually,
here.
well, two things that just wanted to cover. One is, tell us about Savvy Landlord, what that is, and how people can find it and be blessed by it, because being a landlord is not nearly as good as being a savvy landlord.
Okay. So here's the deal. Well, we have this organization called savvyinvestors.com, and we're in the middle of a transition of the website. So if you go there right now, don't be disappointed. It's all screwed up. We're fixing it. But anyway, Savvy Investors, we have a podcast called savvypodcast.com. And I am the savvy landlord, but I'm going to die someday. So we are dropping the landlord off of our business, off of our company. So the Savvy Landlord technically is a book that I written back in 2012. That's exactly how I bought 50 units from nothing until I bought those 50 units. And the publisher was like, "You sure you want to put addresses in here?" Yes. And the reason why I wrote the book is because I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is a phenomenal book, but it didn't go through step by step. And so I went through every deal, exactly how I did it, where I found it, how did I finance it, creatively or through a bank, with the addresses. You can look it up on the county assessor. You could see I owned it. You could see I could still own some of them, most of them. And so that's why I wrote Rich Dad Poor. The Savvy Landlord. I wrote the book because it was a dream. I sold the business at that time. I had some money, and I hired a writer. So Walter and I, we met twice a week for 9 months, and we wrote The Savvy Landlord in 2012. I never knew that it would birth into where it is today. Now we're like a mini conglomerate of education. We do seminars, one called Investor Weekend, that hopefully one day will be coming to a city somewhere. And we do classes locally. We do the landlord lunch, and we just want to educate people and find like-minded people and find freedom. I am the Savvy Landlord, so we're dropping the Savvy Landlord now. It's just savvyinvestors.com.
Excellent. Well, I think you've certainly earned the right to go beyond the landlord mantra.
Yes.
So
I wish I never knew. People ask me when I used to speak, when I first started speaking, where did you come up with the name? I was like, that was the only domain name I can come up with.
well, that's okay. Sometimes it's, different things cause
Creating Wealth USA is just, Robert G. Allen. That was a life change book. Creating Wealth. I mean, that's one of the books I've always referenced all the time. I mean, I just duplicated Robert G. Allen's. If you haven't read that book, it's called Creating Wealth by Robert G. Allen.
mm-hmm.
Basically, you can be a millionaire in 10 years. And I know that you're a mathematical guy, so you'll get this. So you buy a house and you hold on to it and you do it. I just did that exact formula on steroids. I just ramped it up. And
Well,
that's how,
we've done basically the same kind of a thing.
yeah.
But, my philosophy is a little broader because I just look at opportunity and I never want to be a bad steward when it comes to opportunity. So I don't want to be only equipped to do one kind of transaction. I want to have lots of ways to put the deal together, lots of ways to extract profits from it, and lots of ways to help people on both sides of the transaction, regardless of which side I'm on. And it's made a huge difference. It's not having that fear, but it's having love for people, for, true concern, to make sure that nobody gets taken unfair advantage of and that everything is done in a win-win format. Now, my final question, is there one question you wanted me to ask that I didn't? Or just a last thought you wanted to share before we wrap up?
Well, questions I always ask are, what goals and dreams do you have?
Okay, so let that be your question. What goals and dreams?
So it's a loaded question. So, what I want to do is I would, if I could, before I die, I would love to create an entity like Savvy Investors, or maybe I know that I'm called to be an entrepreneur. So that's something new that's been mulling over in my world. But I would like to create an entity that would propel the kingdom, the church, this church called Life Church. It's life.church. And it's a multiple campus church. There's one in Florida. They're all over the place. I would love to create a business that threw off $1 million a year to support that church, or support ministries or missionaries, or not just charitable stuff. Like we served at Thanksgiving, my family, we went down to the rescue mission, and I would love to have a business that would throw off money. I would love to be like Bill Gates, not like Bill Gates as a billionaire, or and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want the fame and fortune. I think I'm already savvy enough. I think I'm already cool. I've already been a DJ. I think that was the ultimate dream of mine at one time. Man, I'm a DJ. That was cool. 1992 to 95. For about 3 years, I was cool, and then I've met celebrities in my lifetime. The only regrets I have right now, or I would love to go to Europe. I definitely want to go to the Ecuador thing with you guys one time before I roll out.
Mm-hmm.
And just, educate my children as much as possible and create a legacy. And I'm not handing it down to them. I just would like it to propel. That's why we're making decisions to get rid of the landlord name, because we're so much more than just a landlord. Yeah, we have houses and we manage them and we know how to do it and we're savvy about it. But we want to propel the future people to be self-sufficient with their investments, and may it be private lending, which is I'm very passionate about, to helping other people to be private lenders. And then I don't know. That would be my ultimate dream. I mean, I'm living my dream every day. I get to spend time with my children. You know, I get to go home at 3:30 when they get off school. I'm there, and that's my dream. So I live my dream. I never my mom was never there. I don't really know my dad, and so I want my kids when they're older. Not that we lived in a nice house, or they're like my dad was there, and you know I'm living that goal right now. My daughter's 10. I got 8 more years with her, and you know I got a little one who's 6, and I got about 12 more years with her. So I got 12 more years of just laying low, and then after 12 more years, you know who knows, Augie? I could be creating wealth, franchisee in Oklahoma City,
There you
which would
go.
be really cool because you know we really want to we want to diversify our brand as well, and we want, you know, the ultimate thing that I, you know, the products that we have rolling out right now are like Investor Weekend is a product, and we would love for you to have that franchise down there, and it's an ambassador program, but we want other people to be successful because of us and because of you. It's a mutual consent. So what I'm saying is
Mhm.
like right now we're looking for people that want to host Investor Weekend, and they own that market, and we come and you come and speak, or if you're available,
Mhm.
you sell your products and services. Only we're trying to allow one speaker, and then if there's any revenue, which there's usually some revenue, that promoter will receive that. It helps us because it helps our brand, it strengthens our brand, and it benefits them. I think that I would love, it's like I love raising up coaches right now, and that they are getting paid. You know, someone calls me, hey man, can you coach me? And I'm like, I don't have the time right now, but I got this great guy, and he gets to coach that person,
Mhm.
and where they're at, and they get paid, and we get a little bit to help them with resources and opportunities. And you know, I would love to see that business model go down, that everyone benefits. I think that where we go wrong as a society, I create a product and I take all the money, and there's nothing wrong with being wealthy, but then there's more ways that we can spend and make the money, you know, velocity, and help other people. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm benefiting that guy, and that it's like, you know, when you came and spoke for us, a lot of people don't know this. I need to let people know this, that when a speaker goes speak, you know, they're splitting some. They cost them a lot of money to get on a plane and get there. Not only that the hours or years or months to write that course, but then they sell it, and then the promoter gets paid from it. And it's there's a two-way street there. One, you're giving the speaker an opportunity to get his name out and to reach a clientele that he may not never ever to reach. And at the same time, the promoter gets to receive something to take the risk to put the event on. I want to create more of those opportunities for everyone. Like if someone can coach someone else, there's a benefit. What I've been seeing lately, which is very fascinating, is that a lot of people have been taking percentages of deals from students. I don't know if you've seen that lately, but I have a podcast that I'm about to release tomorrow, where I interviewed that guy that's madly in love with you, and he paid money. Okay, yeah, he paid like a coaching fee, and they did a deal together, and then they split the deal. I mean, at first you're like, you're giving me. Let me get this straight. I paid Augie $2,000 to coach me for a month. Yes, and then Augie helped me find a deal, and then Augie told me exactly what to do, and then they did the deal, closed the deal, sold the deal, and they profited 20,000. And Augie gets 10, and they got 10. And some people I think would be like frustrated, but this kid, you know, because it's like, well, I did all the work. See, people don't value relationships or knowledge. The
Mhm.
kid thing, the kid goes through this whole story, and he would have never done the deal. He was very fearful. It was $70,000 that they put in. They put him and some other students put it together. So it was like a group coaching. They put them, and they had success, and they made money. And it wasn't like a windfall, but he says it was the best experience in the world. Think about it. Here's the thing, society, you've got to put skin in the game.
That's
That's
true.
why that's why a lot of people, you know, you buy these courses, and yeah, you put some skin in the game, but you didn't really do the work. You know, the guy that wrote the course, some courses, put the work in. Are you going to put the same amount of work in? And so I think it's a mutual thing that a lot of people, they think they just buy the course, don't go it, and they're going to be rich, or they're going to spend $40,000 on some traveling show, and they're mad. Did you make the calls? Did
Well, yeah,
you?
at the end of the day, I mean, different mentors have different modes of operation.
Yeah.
You know, with new students, I never split deals. It's their deal. I want them to make 100% of the profits. When people become more educated, they get to a larger deal, something that's more than they can handle, and they want to invite partners or joint venturers, you know, then I don't have such an issue, because I don't want ever there to be even a perception of a conflict of interest. Because as you know, sometimes deals go the other way. And if people don't do things right, they could take a beating. And I never want to, you know, feel like I've dragged a student into a deal that was too risky for them. And so, you know, we just have had a very solid operating approach for the last almost, I don't know, 15, 16 years. And it's worked out really well. And, you know, there are different structures, but, you know, one of my mentors very early on said, either way, whether you pay for it or you don't pay for it, you will take a seminar when it comes to your investing. Okay. And that's the nature of life. Life is a constant opportunity to get educated. And success is a lousy teacher. Failure is a great teacher, but nobody wants to fail. So my recommendation to people is always, don't consider it failure, consider it feedback. And feedback is what empowers us to make adjustments going forward rather than running away.
Steven, one more thing, and we're out.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that, just to put the cherry on the top of what you said, which is a phenomenal, is we have to take responsibility.
Yes. The first habit of highly effective people.
Take responsibility.
Proactive. We are response-able. We are responsible for our outcomes in life. That's it. And it's just the way it works. But Steven, I've so enjoyed having you, you know, on the show today. Your insights, as always, are just right on. And I love your willingness to share in a very vulnerable and open way. So I thank you. I look forward to our upcoming marathon. That's going to be awesome.
May 3rd, 2020.
Yeah, May 3rd, 2020. It's 3 days before my next anniversary, so that's pretty awesome.
Hey,
but you know, I do want to thank you and all of the folks that either watch us or listen to us for being here. You can find us on a variety of podcast distribution outlets, but you can also find us on Facebook at Playing Full Out with Augie Bylot. That's our Facebook group. For you real estate investors or folks who would like to become real estate investors, we've got a great Facebook group called Transaction Engineering Full Time, over 2,000 strong. And my mission for you is to have you completely successful so that you can live your mission, your purpose, that which is going to give you tremendous fulfillment every day. Instead of waking up in the morning going, oh, God, it's morning. Wouldn't it be great to get up every day and say, good morning, God, what are we doing today? Awesome. So thanks so much for being with us. Thank you again to Steven VanCauwenbergh, the SavvyInvestor.com. Yes. SavvyInvestor.com.
I'm the savvy, baby.
We're done, but it's awesome and it's savvy.
All right, man. Thank you so much
for watching and for listening. And remember, always play full out.